is going to be building up to having something that is rigged and ready to go. So just to talk about what rigging is, let's say we had our sphere from our bouncing ball animation, and we wanted to add controls to it. Anything we would do to add controls to this is essentially rigging. Okay, so in order for us to rig something, we have to know what we're going to do with it. So in this case, we have a ball and we want to squish and stretch it, let's say. Okay, so I would go under my rigging tools and I would add a nonlinear squash to it. I would tweak the settings of this. Whoops, what are you doing here? I would scale this up, and I would put it right there. Now, this item here, this factor, is the only attribute I would use in order to get the ball to do exactly what it's doing. Okay? So if I'm animating this, what I don't want to have to do is click on the ball, move it, and then have to click back on here and grab this and go to factor and then squash it. Now you'll see too, because it's not right centered with it, that we're actually getting some like really weird behavior with this. Okay, so I have to consider the animation part while I'm rigging. All right, so with this, I would make sure that I have this parented so that as the ball moves, it goes along with it, and then as I stretch this factor out and move it along, that everything's going along. Okay, so in this instance, I can grab just the ball, the squash factor is right here, and I can tweak this whole thing. Let's say that I don't want the person to be able to move the ball in the Z direction. So that's another thing that I could rig to say I'm going to right click on the Z direction and lock that specific one. So now they can't move that in the Z direction at all. Okay, so those are perfectly unable to move in any direction. Let's say that I didn't want them to be able to do this or that. I only want them to be able to scale it uniformly. So I can link these things together. Channel, nope, not that. I want connection editor, not you. And in the connection editor, I can set certain things up. So reload right. So all I'm doing is saying that for my scale X, it's going to control scales Y and Z. That's all that does. I click on here to say scale X is going to control Y and Z. And so now if they came over here and tried to scale this, they're only going to be able to scale it in one direction. The other directions won't allow them to do anything, just that one. So that way my sphere will always be uniform. And again, this is just a way for us to narrow in what it is that's that part of rigging. Okay? Same thing with rotation. I may not want them to be able to rotate this direction. So I can go to my rotate X and I can lock that. I could even do a lock and hide, which will actually get rid of the rotate X from that list. So now they don't even see the rotate X there. And sometimes that's a good thing to do because some of these animators don't know what they're doing. And so you don't want them to do stuff that they shouldn't be doing. Lock and hide. There we go. And I'll even lock and hide these, or not lock, but just hide these ones. Okay, so now they're left with a very specific list of here's the stuff that you could animate right here, and then I can also go to the squash and I can actually add this up into that list. So I'm going to go and make on the sphere, I'm going to make a new attribute. And you can make as many attributes as you want. I'm going to call this squash. And I'm not going to set any minimums or maximums. I'll just leave it at the defaults. And then I'm going to use my connection editor to connect these things together. So I'm going to say squash at the bottom. You're going to control that factor. Okay? So now someone can move this, they can rotate it, they can squash it, all from one little area. That way they know here's the things you should touch, don't touch anything else. Okay? So that's the whole point of rigging. So on the next two assignments, we're going to focus on rigging objects. Okay? So the first object you're going to create yourself. And it's going to be a fish. That's going to be our very first rigging assignment, is a fish. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a fish. Don't find something that is crazy. Find something very simple. Obviously, for your first time doing this, you want to make it as easy for yourself as possible. If you get into some crazy fish, I'm trying to think of what someone did before. I don't know. It was like some ridiculous fish that they were trying to emulate perfectly. Okay, muscle fish. Also, we want to get it from a side view. So if you look up side view, you pull up some pretty neat ones. Now we also want to make sure it's a photo and not a realistic drawing or a sketch or whatever. So again, we could look up photo. And we'll pull up some pretty neat ones. Now we don't want something with a text or an image on top of it, so obviously you want to get rid of those. We should also go here to say labeled with reuse for modification. There we go. So let's say I picked a fish like this. So what I would do is download this image of the fish, make a new project, drop it into the project folder. Okay? And then I'm going to come into Maya and I'm going to model and make a new project. I have a hard time getting rid of anything. Whatever. We will bring our fish into our scene. So let me see if I go to my project here and I go to default. Where did he work? Man, where'd my fish go? Hold on. My fish was here a second ago. Fish turning. Alright, I'm gonna steal someone else's fish. I have it in there. Turn in 140 fish. Okay. So we're going to bring a fish into our side view. We're going to model very roughly what the fish looks like, and then we're going to texture the fish, and then we're going to bring them back into Maya to render our stuff out. So when we're done with this, close all this other stuff, we'll end up with fish 2 pieces, 1 piece. A fish like this that has been modeled and textured. Okay? So this is using 2 programs. One of them is Maya, just to get the basic texture. You can see, or the basic shape. You can see how rough that shape is on them. It's not like a highly detailed model. You're just going into the side view and you're just shaping out where all these areas are and giving indications as to where the fins are. Okay, so you can see how the shape from the top looks. You can see how the shape from the sides and front and whatever else look. Okay, now for this one he picked actually 2 fish and he modeled 2 fish. You can see that the eye is not actually modeled on here. It's not anything crazy. Now for this to work, you need the side view because we're modeling from the side view, we're projecting it from the side view. If we have any other view, it's going to be 10 times more difficult to do. Okay. We also don't have scales on here, even though this fish has scales. We're not modeling the scales. This is simply a rigging practice, but we want to see how to model something also for rigging. Okay, so once we have that, what we're going to see is that we have the fish, and then he has all these controls on him. And so if I look at this fish, he has a little controller here for his fin. He has another controller back here for his fin, another controller there for his fin. He has a couple more controllers on his fin right here and on the other side. So he has all of these little controllers that are going to help him move. So he's going to kind of look like he's moving because his fins will all move with the water. So we're going to rig one of these fish. We don't need to do 2. And then what we'll do after, let me turn up my UI elements. There we go. Is we're going to duplicate the fish so that we can have more than 1 fish. Okay, and I don't mean more than 1 like he has 2. I mean we're going to have a whole school of fish. If I can figure out how to work Maya. Come on. Now it's just gone. Where's my outliner? She's gone. New camera time. New camera. It's thinking. So what we're going to do anyway is we're taking our one fish and we're making him animate. Okay, so it looks like he's in the water. We're going to take him and duplicate him 1 billion times. Not really 1 billion, but a lot. And we'll be using dynamics to create a school of fish. So you can see here, we have a school of fish popping out. So once we have our fish that we've modeled, we've textured, we've rigged, and we've done a little bit of animation on him, now we can take him and duplicate him and have a whole school of fish doing that exact same animation. And it's kind of subtle, but if you look at their tails and their fins, they actually are moving their fins and moving their tails as they go. Okay, and you'll see that there's this school and then there's also that school of fish over there, all swimming together. Okay, so it looks a lot more complex than it is. It really is a very just do kind of 1, 2, 3 step. All the material for that is on the Canvas stuff. So on Canvas, it's going to walk you through how to do the modeling part. It's going to walk you through how to do the texturing part. I'm going to go over more rigging stuff once we get to it, but the modeling stuff is pretty straightforward as to how to model it once you see what's going on. My biggest note to say is that you don't want to be too anal about modeling your stuff, because some people get very into, I want to model every single crevice and make sure every bone on the fish's spine is there, and you can't do that. Okay, we have to keep the model light. If we don't keep the model light, what's going to happen is it's going to take forever to do anything. Okay, so if you look at this, this is me modeling the fish. Okay, so you see how I'm modeling this very blocky, extremely blocky. There's nothing insane about how many divisions I have on this. Okay, and 90% of the fish are going to look exactly like mine as far as the shape goes. The tail is going to be kind of separated, maybe. Sometimes they're all one piece. If it's not separated, then obviously it's a lot easier to do than separating it. Okay, you can see the little bit of information I added here, just kind of like scaling the tail in so that it's thinner than the body. And here's me tweaking some of the shape of the head, just so I can add some more shape there. Here's me pulling the fin out. But the whole time I'm keeping everything really light. And when I'm done, that's about the resolution of the fish. Okay, you can see how few divisions I have. Now, anytime we animate something and we want to keep some fluidity to it and some realism to it, we obviously need divisions. If I had a division here and here, I can't shake anything in the middle. I can't wiggle the stuff in the middle. So I need divisions in the middle. So I need some of these divisions in here for that ability to make it look like that. Okay, then once you have this, you'll lay out the UVs, you'll smooth it out. Modeling and texturing. Oops. That's the UV layout. I wanted to go to the next one. Fish texturing. And then we'll be using a program called Mari, and in Mari we're literally just taking our picture of the fish. Okay, the exact picture we use to model our fish, or ish, you know, we can tweak it a little bit. And we can paint right on top of it. So here's me just talking a lot for a half hour. There it is. Okay, so now I'm opening up an image of my fish. I got the play button. All right, now watch how I can take a picture of the fish, drop it into the scene, and I go, and there's the fish. So there's the picture of the fish. I need to shrink it down. Can't change the speed. Spin around, my guy. Come on, spin around. There you go. Okay, lining it up. All right.
Must have been a slow day.
What?
Must have been a slow day.
Yeah.
You're getting impatient with yourself.
There we go. So now you can see how I'm actually painting the texture of the fish. It's actually just projecting it right on there. So if my model is good enough, it's laid out good enough, my picture is good enough, when I bring it into Mari, everything should be good enough. So you don't want to try to grab 7 images of fish and try to put them all together. This is typically the easiest way to do that. And it's not going to be perfect. Up close, this fish is not going to look exactly like a photorealistic, high-quality, movie-ready fish. It's going to look like a cartoony kind of fish, but for the purposes of what we're doing, it's exactly what we want to do. If we were going to do something that was movie-ready, it's the same exact process, just more divisions, more detail to it, like adding in the eye shape itself, and then painting a lot more detail individually as we go. Okay? So once we're done, you'll see that we get this really nice fish. Let me scoot down to there. Okay, so there's all my texture for my fish. And you can see how that fish looks pretty decent of a fish. Okay, it's just a picture of fish projected onto a piece of geometry. Okay, and when we animate him, it'll look pretty neat too. All right, so this is our first rigging assignment. As we're taking this, we're modeling the fish, we're texturing the fish, we're rigging the fish. So you're going to do this all the way from start to finish. It should take probably about 2 weeks-ish for this fish. Okay, so just figure that as you're working on your stuff, that if you're spending too long doing 2 weeks for the entire thing, not just the modeling. So the modeling should take probably a day, the texturing less than a day, maybe a day, and then the rigging part should be the next week or so. Okay, shouldn't take too long, maybe another day or two to render your stuff out. So just keep that in mind as you're scheduling your stuff and kind of planning what you're going to be doing and what your goals are for it. Where's it at? So I have 5 videos for this one that go from the modeling, texturing, rigging, animation, and the scenery and rendering. So if you kind of figured a video a day, that's kind of like a good way to do it. So if you realize it's taking you 2 days to do the first video, you may want to make sure you're getting an extra time to make sure you get it done. The mech rig, which is after this, that's the other rigging part we're doing. That one I'm giving you the object and you're rigging it. And for this one, there's only 1 video. So there's nothing crazy with it. It's just now instead of doing an organic object that's bendy and squishy, we're doing something that's hard surface. So it's more of a mechanical robotic piece. Okay? Usually people have an easier time with the fish stuff, even though there's more videos, than they do the mech, just because the mech has to be perfect in order for it to look good. Whereas the fish, we really have a lot of wiggle room, no pun intended, with where we put those controls. Okay? All right. So if you get done with your ball bouncing, you can start on the fish. Or if your ball's rendering, start watching the fish stuff, start getting your images, and start working on that. Okie dokie? Alrighty.